Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you, all of you, for tuning us in, turning us on. I want to give a special shout out for my buddy at WBLQ for broadcasting this. I want to give a special shout out for the Women's Network Online for broadcasting this. And for the 100 million women that will view this all over the world. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Paula. Thanks for the people that have been so conscientious in allowing us to take this message unedited, unfiltered, no big network to tell us what we can and cannot say. Many of you know me as Dr. Pat, the host of the Dr. Pat Show, founder of Transformation Talk Radio, and producer of Epic Living TV. Katina Makris joining me here today is a phenomenal host of Lyme Light Radio. We were so thrilled to be broadcasting Lyme Light Radio on the network. This disease is near and dear to all of us. We're going to introduce you to someone that actually did something about it. I lost relatives to this disease, but no one will say that they had it. If you're familiar with growing up in the South at all, Virginia in particular, you'll know that playing outdoors is a way of life. It's not like where I grew up in the Bronx, where everything is cement. But what are the consequences of sending your kids outdoors, having parents outdoors? What are the consequences of that? And what does it take to get the attention of our legislature? Katina, would you like to do the honors?
Yes, so I am really honored to introduce you to someone that I consider to be a forerunner in making our world a better place regarding Lyme disease. So Susan Green, welcome.
Yes,
Thank you for joining us here tonight live in New York.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, Susan. So please fill us in for our listeners and our viewers. Dr. Pat and I know about Susan's work, but Susan, please tell us what you did that was so phenomenal regarding legislation.
And I'm going to try not to cry because I have to. I'm already, now that I said that, it's going to be hard. I'm just, I never thought in my lifetime I'd meet anybody from Virginia doing anything. And so thank you.
Well, I'm from Baltimore, but I did do something in Virginia.
Yes.
8 years ago, I'm an attorney, I'm a litigator, and 8 years ago I was in the middle of a trial, and I had a seizure. I lost my ability to speak, and I lost my ability to use my hands.
Yeah.
I had 3 Lyme tests. They were all negative, and so I started to get what I call the eye roll disease. The eye roll disease is when you go to see your doctor and you tell them your symptoms, and they look at you and they roll their eyes behind your back, except it's in your face. And then they start coming up with all kinds of diagnoses, bipolar, menopause, crazy diagnoses.
I got sleep apnea.
So you're sick, but you can't get their attention. So in February of that year, I had a seizure, lost my ability to speak, lost my ability to use my hands. I had 3 tests for Lyme disease. They were all negative. And so finally I went to a doctor, and I had been up researching 23 hours a night, and I knew I had Lyme disease.
Wow.
And I begged for antibiotics.
Wow.
And the man said to me, "You don't have Lyme disease." I said, "Look, if I'm wrong, I'll suffer the consequences, but please give me the antibiotics."
Right.
And he said, "I'm going to give them to you because you're so hysterical." He says, "But you have some rare airborne disease that's in your lungs, so fungus." So make a long story longer, I took another test, and it came back positive. He called me 6:30 in the morning, and he said to me, "You're off the charts."
Oh, wow.
And I got out of bed and started dancing around the room because I thought, oh my God, I have an answer. I know what's wrong with me. I had no idea the journey I was beginning. So come to find out, all those years that I had it, that nobody knew I had it, and no one knew to test me, and no one knew how to diagnose me.
What kind of test even to test you with,
Correct.
right?
So I had passed it to my son in utero, and my child was also afflicted with Lyme. And quite frankly, I was ticked, no pun intended.
Right.
And so what I decided to do was I decided that no family should have to suffer what we suffered. And I wrote a bill, and the bill basically says that if you are a doctor and you give a Lyme test, for those people who don't know, the test is wrong over 60% of the time.
That's right.
And by the way, people who think that everybody gets a bullseye rash, that is also a myth. you get a bullseye rash in less than 50% of the cases. And so now in Virginia, the bill I wrote says that when a doctor tests you for Lyme disease, they must give the patient an information sheet, and that sheet tells the patient that the test is inaccurate in early testing, that if you test negative, it doesn't mean you don't have the disease, and if your symptoms persist, you should return for further testing or treatment. And I want to tell you something that was one of the most remarkable things about the whole bill process. It was a horrific fight. And
a bloodbath.
It was a bloodbath.
It was a bloodbath.
And how long did it take, Susan?
It took me, actually, that was the fourth time I tried to bring it. I tried to bring it in other states, but this was the fourth time I tried to bring it. But I want to tell you, the craziest thing of all was the day that the governor signed the bill.
Wow.
So we're at a park, and he's signing this bill. And who do they have come to see the signing of this bill but the Boy Scouts?
Oh,
I thought, what a lovely
touch.
And where do you think they put them?
Did they read the bill?
Where do you think they put them? In the grass in front of the table.
Oh, my gosh.
So here are these children sitting in the grass. And I'm really trying to focus because this is a big moment in my life. I'm trying to focus on this triumph that we've worked so hard for. And what do you think? So there's a little boy, and he's sitting in the grass, and he takes a piece of fabric, and he's going back and forth. And I'm now mesmerized. I can't even hear what the governor's saying. And I'm watching this little boy, and his face lights up, and he makes eye contact with a woman sitting in the front out in the audience.
Oh, I can't wait.
And he holds up the piece of fabric, and he now duck walks across the lawn to this woman, and he shows her, and I can see from where I'm standing, there's about 10 deer tick on this piece of fabric. And I'm thinking to myself, that little boy just did a tick drag while the governor's signing this bill, warning the people in Virginia about the inaccuracy. I almost had a heart attack. I was watching this kid. I just was like, get up! Get up! But
did the boy know what he was
had to know what he was doing because he was doing a tick drag.
He had to be kind of like, are you for real putting us in the grass kind of conversation. I mean, brilliant though, right?
It was so, just the incongruity of the whole thing, to be sitting there warning the population that, of the horrors of Lyme disease in Virginia. We know it's one of the top 13 states. To have these kids sitting in the grass while the governor's talking about this test. And this little boy, so wise beyond his years, is sitting there doing this tick drag.
So, Susan, the bill you passed, I forget the name of it. It's what?
The Patient Information Disclosure Act, along with NatCap Lyme. They worked very hard with us, and we were able to marshal all of Virginia. And thank you, Dr. Pat. I understand that you were cheering us on down there.
I was cheering you on because, I can't go back and actually say. None of us in my family, could say. My family, they're from there, Richmond, Virginia. My folks worked at the tobacco plant. So, of course, that if you're in that area, most of the diagnosis is going to be attributed to what? The tobacco plant and that environment. And so it's harder to even get a conversation with anyone that it's not that, or it's not related to cigarettes, or it's not related to that. And yes, I do believe to this day that we lost family members, young family members. One of them in particular passed away, but both of the children, both of the kids exhibited what I now know is Lyme disease at a very young age, in the brain. I know that. In the brain.
And to not have answers, and the answers are so readily available to those who know. And that's why one of the greatest things about that bill, and I hope more states will follow. I regularly speak to advocacy groups around the country. But the greatest thing about the bill was, in addition to the bill passing, the media storm it generated. I doubt there's a person in Virginia that doesn't now know that the test is inaccurate. And so even in states where maybe the governor or the General Assembly might not be inclined to pass it, just the conversation, the dialogue, so people know, do not rely on that test. That test is not reliable.
Right. Yeah.
And, of course we know that early detection is key to prevention. And so if more people knew that the test is not reliable, that you don't have to have a bullseye rash, they could get treatment sooner, and maybe it'll save some lives.
Right, because if you get on quick treatment, you have a much better chance of recovery.
Absolutely.
So also, Susan, Can this bill that you got passed, can it be duplicated in other states?
Of course,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to help.
You are.
Well, you are going to help me if you are that happy to help, because the state that I now live in, and you must know this, the state that I now live in, I was one of the first cases that could get a Lyme test from the CDC. They so don't believe in it where I live that they make you go to the CDC to get the test if you don't go to a natural doctor. Now, I had a natural doctor, but what I'm trying to say is it is really one thing to have a state like Virginia that's willing to look at it, but there should be no state in this country that refuses to acknowledge that Lyme disease exists. There should be no state in our country.
Dr. Pat?
Maybe one or two of them, I don't know. Somebody said, well, maybe Arizona or something. I don't
No,
know. But
there's
where
no
I
state.
live,
There's no
it
state.
is warm most of the year. It is wet most of the year.
There is
Okay?
no state.
They do not die. Okay? And
winter
it is
over in
time,
the cold.
and I have a good relationship with the governor, so we're coming, Jay. We're coming your way.
I got bitten December the 1st, so it's not a summertime disease.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
number one. Number two, what I will tell you is, one of the crazy-making things about this disease is the CDC reporting requirements. In order for you to be CDC positive, you have to have 5 bands, 5 positive bands.
That's right.
And
I
you
had
have
two.
to have, and you have to have the second confirming test. Now we
Right.
know that there are certain bands that are more indicative of Lyme than
Right.
others. Okay, the CDC will tell you.
We now know.
This test is not meant to be a diagnostic tool. This test is for surveillance survey criteria only. What does that mean? Okay, we in the public go, what?
Surveillance?
What that
Right.
means is we're keeping track of the numbers. It doesn't mean that this is the diagnosis. And so you have in the South, for instance, the South is the hardest place to get
Yes,
a diagnosis
it is.
because not only do you need a CDC positive test, and that's really hard, but on top of that, you need a bullseye rash, or you can't be reported as positive.
And
so
some states like North Carolina, the Infectious Disease Society won't even acknowledge it as it exists in the state.
Oh, they
right?
do. They did. They came out. We
They
made
finally
them.
did.
We made
They
them.
finally
And
did.
Washington State doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm down there fighting them right
Good.
now, and I will continue to fight them
Good.
because North Carolina is
Is
a
in trouble.
big problem. But I
In
will
real
tell you
trouble.
this. I will tell you that what really, this confounds me that there are people out there who have Lyme disease that the CDC says don't use our test, our diagnostic criteria. Don't use our criteria as diagnosis. Use it only to track the numbers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They came out this year and they said, you know what, it's not 30,000 cases, it's 300,000
right.
cases, further validating that their test is not reliable in tracking the numbers, but yet the insurance companies will deny coverage or treatment for patients who don't have a CDC positive test. It is crazy making to me, and
It is.
that's one of the things I'm going to work
It
on.
is. And one of the
Yes.
things that we're fighting for in my current home state is a combination of results. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I'm not an attorney, but maybe you could tell me if this even makes sense. If you have 2 different tests, and let's say you get a Western blot test, and you get the test that the CDC gives you. If you have 8 panels in total, and somebody were to say, let's put all 8 panels together, and let's just take a look. And out of 8 panels, if maybe you have a majority, maybe we should look at something. And I think what you find is when you start to combine things or try to make sense of different panels that show up with other panels, and my case is exactly like you said. I had 2 of 5 panels, but my readings were off the chart. My doctor looked at it and said, I've never seen anything like this. So that's 5 of 8. You can't even have a conversation about that now.
And how lucky are we that we were able to afford and find the right medical doctors?
Yes.
I have over 1,000 people on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
Some of them go to their veterinarian and say, my dog has Lyme,
Right.
to get antibiotics.
Or they
tragic.
buy ivermectin from the feed store that they use for cattle and sheep so they can treat themselves with Bartonella.
Well, it's heartbreaking
They're
to me.
having to go.
It
and
is heartbreaking.
Right.
And I will tell you that I've been practicing law longer than I care to admit to
Right.
anymore. But I will tell you this. I will tell you that at least 50% of the time that I work now is dedicated to the protection of the physicians. It's dedicated to advocating for the patients and to effectuating change. And I will not rest until there is something done about this, because it is such, looking back through the looking glass of time, we will see this particular era of medicine, right, as one of the worst eras of medicine. I think Ken Ligner said it best. It's an abomination.
It is.
And so that's what I do now. I spend half my time, fighting for doctors and fighting for the patients.
Good for you, Susan Green. You are really, you're like a gladiator. You're our Artemis out there.
Well, part of this is also, and you know this too from what you've studied and what you've gone and researched. I come from one of the most incredible states in the country in terms of natural medicine, Washington State. Bastyr University, some of the most brilliant, integrative, functional people on the planet. Klinghardt, people that have come to the forefront. Dr. Nushin Darvish, my naturopath, who saved my life, using both natural and conventional medicine. We put a cocktail together that would grow hair on your chest, but it worked.
I'll pass.
Yes, I know, I'll pass for that one too. Now I'd love to grow some hair.
Not in your chest, I presume.
But here's really what the story then becomes. When we all come together, natural, Eastern, Western, law, citizens, we all come together. Damn, we're good.
Yeah, we are.
We're good.
Yeah, we are.
And we're shifting the tides.
We are
shifting
and
the tides.
And try to stop us, right?
We're good.
Try to stop us.
We're good.
And the Lyme community is filled with very intelligent, very capable people, high achieving, often really people that were at the top of their fields when they got sick. So as we regain our health, I'm a survivor too, someone like yourself, there's a passion and commitment and a high degree of ambition and intelligence to make change. Well, we're going to shift the tides.
And look at all the wonderful people here from TBDA. David Roth, Jody Naz, Jennifer Weiss, Nan Kurzman. There are so many superstars here tonight, and they've worked so hard, and I'm so fortunate to be here tonight with everyone.
It's been a
and so happy to see you guys.
Well, it's wonderful, and I love that we're able to now reach international. I was speaking with my naturopath who visits China, so we're now able to have conversations nationally and internationally with people about awareness, because not everybody's where we are. And yet some countries are far more aware. China is aware of what's
Germany's
going on.
Very aware.
Germany
Norway's
is aware.
Australia, England.
Exactly.
Canada's actually becoming
struggling.
Well,
those deer are just a little border away.
Well, you know what makes me laugh? I have to tell you, I was down in Palm Beach a couple Christmases ago, and actually I wasn't in Palm Beach, I was next door, but I was reading the Palm Beach Post, and they said, oh my goodness, there's been this outbreak of babesia with the Red Cross, with the blood bank. And they said, it must be all those northerners coming down, those snowbirds are bringing the babesia to our blood banks, because we have ticks in Florida, but they don't bite people. So they have only gourmet vegetarian ticks in the country. Right. And North Carolina I've seen that from the Department of Health as well. So how fortunate for them. They've got little border crossings with, they only let the vegetarian ticks in, Insanity.
Thank you, Susan Green. It's been
my
really a pleasure to have you here with us tonight.
Florida's got giant mosquitoes.
Oh, Florida's got big ticks too. Ask Dr. Carrie Clark. He'll tell you.
They got the ticks the size of those other things. Susan, thank you. Katina, thank you. Let's take a short break.
Guys, great
We'll be right back. Awesome.
Great job.